Hey everyone, Real Comic Stacks. It's been a crazy day. I'm running a little late. Still learning how to do the live stream stuff. Didn't realize I had to change the live stream encoding, but I got it figured out. 10 minutes late. It's fitting. Actually went to go see Aquaman tonight, and I get a couple folks in here, and we will get going. And why am I talking to nobody right now? All right, let me see what else I can figure out here real quick as people start showing up. Let's see what just happened. I'm live. Let's see, should be good to go now. I liked it. Hey Jake, just Jake. I really liked it. It was I was very surprised, and I'm kind of right now, honestly, I'm mad at the rest of all of the DC movies that they've done, because that one was so well done that it just kind of ticked me off that, you know, we had I'll try to stay spoiler free. I'm going to talk basically the big arcs of the movie, not any of the details. But the movie was, as far as talking Aquaman right now, it was so well paced that every time you got to a moment where it's like, oh hey, that's really cool, you'd have that moment, and then boom, you get hit in the face again. It was just it almost felt, and I'm not saying it was as good as Infinity War, because Infinity War had a lot of stuff behind it, but it was paced as well as Infinity War was, in that every time you got to you came down off a high point and you had that quick moment, and then, you know, something else happened almost immediately. So it was really good. I had a funny story I got to share. We get into the theater, right? We sit down. It's one of those crazy fancy theaters where they like come and like they take your order at your seat, and they're bringing out food to people, and it's really weird. And I hadn't been to a theater like that before, but it was the closest one, so it's what I went to. And we're sitting there, and we get about 10, 15 minutes into the movie. Hey, no reload, Rich. We get about 15 minutes in the movie, and the lady comes out and she says, "Hey everyone, I apologize, but they started the movie too early. So we are now going to have to stop the movie and restart it, and I apologize, but that's what happened." I had popcorn. I had popcorn and some the Sour Patch Kids, because, you know, that's how I roll. And it was good. But back to the movie. I meant to go to the desk afterwards, but I was in such a hurry to get out of there so I could get back and do this and get everything figured out. I forgot to stop by the desk because the lady said she would compensate us afterwards. She's like, "I'll make it up to you guys afterwards," and nobody ever really made it up to me. So I got to figure that out. Yeah. But comparing the movies, well, and let me talk a little bit more on Aquaman without spoiling it. This did, in fact, it made me mad at the DC universe that this movie came out so late. This movie was so well done that it eclipses anything that DC's put out. There were some points in it where I don't think DC is as good as Marvel on one main point, and that's the aging progression stuff. I don't think they do as good a job on that, and some of the scenes look very, you know, I just put out that video with my Iron Man cut and paste job as one of the thumbnails, and a lot of it, especially like some of the underwater scenes, you can tell they're so heavily CGI'd that the heads don't sit right on the outfits and stuff. But besides that, I mean, storyline wise, this movie was excellent. Aquaman, I feel like I'm talking about it way too late. I wish I would have seen it maybe during the Christmas break when some folks invited me. But it was awesome. I'm going through my head the other DC movies that, you know, you had Man of Steel, which Man of Steel wasn't a bad movie. They never followed up on it. You had Batman, Batman versus Superman, which was, in my opinion, a huge mistake. I think DC tried to copy Marvel. I mean, you introduced Wonder Woman in that movie, and before her debut, they should have debuted Wonder Woman prior to Superman versus Batman, but they didn't. And then same with Aquaman. They introduced Aquaman. They kind of hint at him in the Batman v Superman, and then they introduce him in Justice League, which was I don't even want to talk about Justice League because after seeing this movie, those movies just really make you mad. Black Manta in the movie is well done. His driving force. I don't want to, try to keep it spoiler free. His driving force is good. I like it. And they set him up as a good character, a good villain. And it was really good. The movie, walking into it, I didn't really know what to expect, and I'd intentionally, stayed spoiler free. I really watched what I did. I hadn't been clicking on any videos that had anything about Aquaman, so going into it, I really didn't know what to expect, other than I'd heard everybody say it's good, and I will say it well worth the money to go see it. I think when I compare it to the SpiderVerse, which I went and saw the SpiderVerse about 2 weeks ago, maybe a little longer than that. So I've got I've had to sit and think about that movie, and staying spoiler free on that too. It was a good movie. I had some issues with it. But the movie overall was good. However, I feel like the hero arc in Aquaman eclipsed. Yeah, I know. I actually I feel like the hero arc definitely eclipsed from Aquaman eclipsed the Miles Morales hero arc. It's funny you should say that about Jason Momoa, because I forgot where I was at. I think I was getting a haircut, and the guy that cuts my hair is doing his thing, and two of the other ladies that worked at this place, they were sitting there talking about how they were going to go see the movie just because he was so hot, and I thought it was hilarious. And dude is ripped. I'll give him that. He is buff. He's a beast. But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about. I feel like I'm talking about this dude and he's a good looking man. But yeah, the hero arc in Aquaman, I think, was a lot better, and I felt like, and I'm trying to say this without any spoilers on the Miles Morales story arc. There's storylines where somebody just instantly becomes everything beyond anything that's ever existed because suddenly they believe in themselves, and I just don't buy into that. It's there's a peak there that should happen when they, you know, whatever happens in their story arc, but in Miles Morales' case, it felt forced. It felt like there was too much of a push to make him the new Spider-Man. We really don't need Peter Parker anymore because we got this guy, and that's honestly, I like Miles Morales as far as comic book characters that have come in, through the SpiderVerse and all that. He's definitely one of the better ones, but I felt like that movie, which I walked away liking. I thought it was a lot of fun. I had to sit there and think if I liked it better than Venom, which Venom was a really good movie. It was a really fun movie. I mean, it had some issues in it, but you could tell how it was at one point supposed to be a rated R movie, and some of the scenes didn't make sense. In hindsight, the way, and I'm getting texts from folks already about me making comments about how good looking Aquaman is. Hey, he is a good looking man. If you can't admit it, you're maybe not comfortable with yourself. So, but the Venom movie felt like it didn't know really what it wanted to be and do, in some of it, but I really liked that movie too. So I guess I'm not too picky on superhero movies. How much do I need to know about the Spider-Verse to watch the movie and get all the references? And nobody can replace Tom Holland. The snap got me. There were several moments in that movie that got me. You can watch the movie and not know the Spider-Verse characters, and you'll be fine. I had some nieces and nephews go and see it, and they're not big on. I mean, a couple of them know about some of the comic book heroes and some of the Spider-Verse characters, but they do a good job of kind of explaining them within it, and it's not critical to watching the movie. You could absolutely watch it without any comic book knowledge or background on it. If you give anybody grief for when Peter Parker got dusted in Infinity War, you are wrong. Because when I looked around, man, there was not first of all, it was dead silent in that theater. You could have heard a pin drop, and so I mean, it was in. No, it's not a prequel. It is post Justice League, post Steppenwolf. So, and that's actually mentioned in the movie how it is post Steppenwolf, and he is that's about all I really could say as far as if you want me to stay spoiler free on it, but the big conflict is, he's having to deal with, is he an Atlantean or is he a human? And it has a really good story arc. And Blackheart doesn't allow me to cry. I did have to pick my job, man. Let's see, the moments that got me during Infinity War, and there's a moment in Aquaman that got, I mean, it wasn't near Infinity War levels for me, but I had one of those moments where I kind of did the oh man, and really really liked it. That was me squirting some tears out the side. But Infinity War, it was darn. I mean, that was an emotional roller coaster. That whole movie, when you had what was it? Well, when the snap happens, of course, everybody's just like looking around like, what the crap happened? When Thor arrived, everybody's like screaming and cheering. When the Gamora scene, dude, that got me. When you realize what is about to happen on that, you're just like, oh my goodness. And she's sitting there laughing at him. And when he turns around and you see that pain look in his eyes, as a father, I was like, first of all, I'm like, sorry, Galaxy. I guess we're just going to run out of resources. But that got me. What else? I mean, so there that movie was like a roller coaster. I don't know what they're going to do to us in Endgame. It's going to be brutal. The Russo brothers are just toying with my heart. So when that does happen, it's going to be crazy. Oh yeah, yeah. When he said that, and because going into it, we didn't know, who was sticking around and who was, what was going to happen, and you just assumed going forward that these heroes, especially the new ones that they'd already kind of announced movies for, were going to be there. Oh, so when Black Panther reached down, Bucky was like, okay, that was the first one you saw go. Bucky got dusted, and you're like, okay, it's Captain America with the metal arm. They still got Cap, we're good. But then when T'Challa reaches down and he gets dusted, you're like, they're doing this. Let me get a drink. I don't see how people do these like 2-hour live streams where they're talking the whole time, because I get dry as could be and got to chug some water. But yeah, when I read that article about what Groot said, no, Reload Rich is mentioning it right now. When I read that article about what Groot said, the article got me, because you just you see Groot look up at him and say, I'm Groot, but when you read it, it's like, dude, that's over. Hey, Lord Callis, man. Hey guys, if you're into Star Wars, you need to go check out this guy. He puts out great material. It really is. He just did one on Captain Rex, and I loved it. I mean, he just nailed the character. So if you guys are into Star Wars content, this is your guy. He's on his march to 1,000 subs. I'm about tempted to call a date for him, because he's doing it, man. He's doing real quality content. But yeah, hey, no problem. Thanks for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it. We're talking Aquaman. Staying spoiler free is hard, especially right when you get done with the walk out of the movie, because you want to spill it to everybody. But I know I got some folks here hadn't seen it, but we always kind of shift back to Infinity War for sure. Oh yeah, with with Doctor Strange, you got to go back to his him seeing the way that they win, and he had to do it in a way. You go back to, he could have stopped Thanos. He had the time stone there, and at any point he could have used it, but. And Thanos grabs it and says, "You never used your greatest weapon," and he crushes the Eye of Agamotto, and grabs him, and that's when he throws him down and goes into it with Tony Stark. Tony Stark ends up getting stabbed with his own blade, and you get that moment where he's about to, I hope they remember you, and Doctor Strange stops him, and you have to know that Doctor Strange has seen all the possibilities. He knew that that Thanos had to win. And I did a video about this a while back, about why did Thanos have to win. And the only thing I could figure is that it tied to the Mind Stone. That when Scarlet Witch destroyed the Mind Stone, it created with the universe and those being, they were there when in the beginning and all that mess. When the Mind Stone was destroyed, it created an imbalance, and it would have created a greater catastrophe than what would be caused by the snap. Now, is Strange gonna now where we go from here? I mean, who knows? I mean, the Russo brothers are such trolls. I mean, they really are. I don't know. I've got where I think I'd like them to go. But I really don't know. I mean, the quantum realm and Ant-Man has got to tie in. Some of the leaks that they've seen have definitely said, hey, time travel is going to happen. But you figure nothing they're going to show from the trailer. Everything from the trailers that they're showing is within the first 15 minutes. Man, I've got somebody punking me right now asking if I'm going to do a Mary Poppins trailer because that's a superhero. And I almost want to do a Who Did It Better, the new Mary Poppins or Yondu. Because, I mean, Yondu can do some Mary Poppins. Set up for Secret War. I can see him. The Russos have said they would come back and work and produce again if they let them do Secret War. But I think you have to. I think Secret War is another 10-year event, or at least 5. Yeah, I think they have to work up to that, and they have a lot of characters that have to introduce in order to get to Secret War. I would love to see it, but you could. And Civil War II, I don't see him doing. I mean, it's possible because for those not familiar with Civil War II, it is all based around an Inhuman that was born and he could see into the future. He had basically precognition, and you find out through the course of events that he's not always right, and it comes down to Tony Stark, who is on the side of, no, you can't imprison these people because they might do something wrong. And Captain Marvel, on the other side, who absolutely was like, she was throwing people in prison. And even though she ran across cases where she, there was one in particular where she arrested this person that was supposed to have all this money in the suitcase and all this stuff, and when she did, she opens the suitcase and nothing's in it. So there's this, she's just arrested somebody, thrown them in jail for a crime they might have committed, but they didn't commit. So if this was alternate realities that this guy was seeing, but it's kind of crazy. That whole storyline, Hawkeye ends up killing the Hulk. I mean, it's a really interesting storyline. The concept of it was good. Miles Morales is involved. It's good. It's a good storyline. A lot of people didn't like Civil War II because it led into Secret Empire, which was kind of like a dumpster fire with gas just pouring all over it. Let's see. Sorry, this is off topic, but all this has me thinking: do we have a canon Green Goblin in the MCU, or do they scrap the whole William Dafoe thing since he's in DC Aquaman? Well, I mean, there's been other characters that have went DC and Marvel, so I don't think that's a big deal. I don't think it'll be William Dafoe if they do it. They currently don't have a Green Goblin in MCU now. Norman Osborn's important, though, going forward. I do think they're going to have to introduce the Green Goblin, or at least Norman Osborn, because you run into some storyline possibilities that have been floated, and they're supposed to actually be working on a storyline or a script for Dark Avengers. And I've kind of talked about this a little bit before. The Dark Avengers ties into the Siege storyline, and right now you have the Asgardians. And I did a video kind of jokingly trying to figure out how many Asgardians were left, and I think it was like 1,600 or something of them is what I figured. But the Asgardians end up looking for a place to live, and they end up in all places buying some real estate in Oklahoma and moving in. Now at that point, Norman Osborn has taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. He's become the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. after Tony Stark because of what happened during the Skrull invasion. So Tony Stark ends up getting fired from S.H.I.E.L.D. as the director, and Norman Osborn takes over. And eventually Norman Osborn basically saying that, hey, the Asgardians are a security threat to the United States. He goes in and tries to arrest them. He has the Iron Patriot suit at the time, so he's Iron Manned up. Has some other characters with him, including the Sentry, Ares, the God of War, some other pretty big heroes, and they go in to take him out. And Thor ends up just going full-blown God of Thunder, taking out some pretty big heroes there, and it's crazy. But it's a really good storyline that could tie in, and at least them moving to Earth could come into play, because Thor is loved on Earth. When he showed up in New York, people were in Thor Ragnarok, when him and he met Doctor Strange. When he's standing there with Loki, they're getting selfies with Thor. So yeah, I don't know what that really looks like going forward, but it's a storyline I hope they can latch onto, because it'd be a good one. But there's so many different ways these guys can go. I don't know what happens with the Infinity Stones after Endgame. I mean, you think about it. What happens to them? Do we move into the Infinity Watch, where you had Doctor Strange gets the Time Stone back, Captain Marvel takes the Reality Stone, several different beings go and take different stones. How does that look if you do that? I mean, let's see. Do you see Fantastic Four, X-Men working their way into the bigger MCU picture? Wolverine appearance rumors. I know they're needed. Oh, absolutely. But I think we as fans have to be patient. Allegedly, and I think they, heaven forbid they do something illegal, but they weren't even supposed to be allowed to write scripts or anything that included the Fantastic Four or X-Men prior to owning the properties, and that's still an ongoing legal thing. They may have them now. I think in mid-January they were supposed to be officially back. There was some other big news that if Apple is buying out Sony, and people are trying to figure out why that's a big deal. If Apple buys Sony, the rights for Spider-Man and all of the other entities that Sony owns, that they bought from Marvel, they're non-transferable. So if they buy out Sony, those go back to Marvel, which would be awesome, because that means they end up with Venom. They end up with they actually own Spider-Man again. They don't have to just borrow him from Sony. I think the Incredible Hulk is owned by Universal. So there's a couple of those that'll come back over, which is good for the MCU. One thing I do have to touch on Aquaman is once you've seen it, you have to do would you rather go visit Wakanda or Atlantis? And assuming you could breathe underwater, because that was when I was sitting there watching it. Atlantis is beautiful. It is so it looks absolutely fascinating. Yes, you're right. Spider-Man in the MCU is almost up, unfortunately, and that stinks big time. What I was mentioning though is the Sony being bought out by Apple, and how that would transfer back possibly if because it's a non-transferable license agreement. I hope that works out. I hope it does go back eventually to Marvel, because it'd be good to have them back under one roof. But going back to some of the characters that I'd like to see going forward. We mentioned Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin. Even if he doesn't become the Green Goblin right away, just having that counterweight in the MCU as far as a big money villain. One individual that's out there that they haven't done anything with other than the kind of fake out during Iron Man 3 is the Mandarin. There's a one shot called Hail to the King, I believe. And if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. But in it, the 10 rings actually come and get the guy that played him, Trevor. What's it? Trevor. It's I can't remember his name, but they actually come bust him out of jail and run off and kidnap him from prison. It's crazy. But the 10 rings are established in the MCU, and the Mandarin himself is the one who orders the hit on the guy that impersonated him. So it's he's out there. He's a villain that if he came out, I mean he's typically a Iron Man villain. But what do we do with Tony Stark afterwards? After Endgame, I think you can probably have him as and I think I mentioned this the other night. You have him as a background character, kind of like he was in Spider-Man: Homecoming, where he's the mentor, the financier. He's doing. I mean, even if he went and directed Shield in the new movie, in the movies going forward, he would have less of a role than he currently has. So I think that could be. I think that could be done. I think that could. I really don't want Robert Downey Jr. to leave. I mean. I mean, you got to pay him a buttload of money, but it's not like, when these movies are making $2 billion, they can't afford to continue to line the pockets of those individuals that have made it successful. Because, hey, just Jake, have a good one, brother. Thank you for hanging out for a while. And he's that guy right there. Just Jake's the guy that did my intros, my new ones, which I absolutely love, by the way. Both my the Marvel one and the yeah, I'll riot. I'm with you. We'll stage the 2-man riot outside. I mean, Endgame is right around the corner, man. It's hard to believe that we are 2 months away from Captain Marvel. Slattery, that's it. Trevor Slattery. Who will be your Sinister Six? I think it's going to be the Sinister Six. I think I think that'll work. Going through it in my head.